Let's start this story in a traditional way for an energetic reason that might become obvious to us as the story unfolds. In a time long ago, in a place far away, there was a tailor, and even though he was patronized by the king himself and the king's court, he was still a poor man, like most artisans of that time. But this tailor's work was so good that he was patronized by such as the king and his court. And as it happened, the son of the king, the prince himself, who came from the youngest age to be fitted for the garments that the tailor made, became really enamored of the way of the tailor. He loved to watch the deftness as the tailor cut the cloth and sewed it into the magnificent garments that he loved to wear. And the prince would often come to visit the tailor, and a friendship grew between them as the prince grew. But as time passed, there came a time when a messenger came to the tailor's shop with an invitation to the reception that was to be held for the prince's birthday, and a personal note written by the prince on the bottom of the tailor's invitation said, "I am sorry that the duties of court have kept me from visiting you for some while, but please accept my invitation to join me at my birthday celebration." Well, of course the tailor was overjoyed to receive this invitation, not only because it came from a prince of the realm, but because it came from his friend. But his wife said to him, "How can we accept an invitation where, poor people, we do not even have garments suitable to wear?" But the tailor was so overjoyed, he was determined to attend this function. Now, in a time past, when a son was born to the tailor, the prince sent a gift to him, and it was the gift of a magnificent piece of cloth. And with this gift came a note from the prince: "Make a cloak for your son out of this rare and beautiful piece of material." But as these things go, after the gift had been placed away in a safe place, it was forgotten. But then came the night of the reception, and the tailor and his wife and his son, who was included in the invitation, made their way to the palace. On their way they passed the carriages that held the nobles and other gentry that had received invitations to this function, all wearing their fancy garments, but walking as they had to do, the tailor, his wife and son, wearing their simple peasants' gear, presented themselves to the butler at the door of the palace and handed the invitation to him. But looking them up and down, he scoffed at them and said, "Where did you get this invitation? Look at you peasants. We do not have peasants here." And the tailor very loudly proclaimed that this was an invitation from the prince himself. But the butler and now those other gentry who were standing around also scoffed. "How could you have an invitation from the prince?" And so the tailor, his wife and son were turned away, and staggering down the road with tears flowing down his eyes. They realized that it was because of their poverty and what it was that they appeared that they could not gain entry to this reception hall. When they returned home, the tailor was quite distraught because, in fact, the prince had made this a personal invitation, and now he could not attend at that request. But then the tailor had a thought. He suddenly remembered the exquisite piece of cloth that had been given to him for his son. And he said to his wife and son, "Wait, this very night I am going to make for you a cloak. Even if it takes me every moment of this night, I will finish it so that you can attend the second night of the function that was the reception for the prince's birthday." All night the tailor sewed until in the morning he had the most exquisite cloth made of this beautiful piece of cloth. Now he shone up the shoes of his son, and he said, "Tonight you will attend on my behalf this reception." The son was very reluctant, but donning the cloak, he made his way to the palace, and with great trepidation and fear he presented himself to the butler at the door. When he handed him the invitation, he was greatly surprised when the butler said, "Oh, you are greatly welcome. Come, come, come." And he escorted him in to a place at a table where all the other gentry were seated. Now, as the young man sat eating from gold plates, drinking out of silver goblets, he had in him an energy arise of awareness that it was his garments that gained him entry into the reception, not who he was, a friend of the prince. So anger rose up in him. So he jumped up from his table, took off his cloak, and loudly he said, "Cloak, would you like this dance?" And he took his cloak out to the ballroom and began to waltz with it around the hall. And then he said, "Oh, Cloak, you must be hungry. Come to the reception table." And he took his cloak and poured over it a large silver goblet of red wine. "Here, enjoy this cloak." And so it went on until all of the guests were noticing this strange behavior. And so he was called over to the prince, and the prince himself said, "Why are you mocking me so?" And the young man recounted how his father, the tailor, had received the invitation from him, but because of how they were clothed and appeared, they were turned away. So it was this cloak that gained him entry into this illustrious place. Now the prince suddenly put two and two together, and he said, Where is my friend the tailor?" Because he then realized that this was his son. So immediately he called the butler to him and scolded him roundly, and he said, "Send a carriage straight away, immediately, to the tailor's house, and bring them back here no matter what they're wearing. My friends have been invited as my guests to this birthday celebration." So it was a very great surprise to the tailor and his wife, the tailor wearing his pajamas and his wife wearing her dressing gown, when this capricioned carriage stopped at their door, and the livery came out to demand that they enter the carriage, and were taken back to the palace in great pomp and ceremony. When the tailor and his wife arrived at the door, the prince came to greet them personally, embracing the tailor, escorting them into a place of honor at the reception table. He then asked the tailor's wife, would she dance with him? And so resplendent in her dressing gown, he took her out to the ballroom, and they danced. The prince then asked to meet the tailor's son, who had hidden behind, not to be noticed, somewhat now embarrassed. But when he was brought before the prince did not allow him to apologize as he tried to do. He merely congratulated him for being able to stand up in what was a truth. And he said to the young man, I need such as you in my court. And so it happened that the young son of the tailor eventually became the chief advisor to the prince when he became the king of that realm. Firstly, when we hear the words, in a time long ago, in a place far away. What does this do for us? How does it set the tone like a tuning fork for that which follows, like the story? We can experience for ourselves the place that is there when such an introduction is put. If we look to our own life, our own relationship with life, what is our tuning fork? What is it that precedes any interaction, any interchange with whatever it is that has presented itself to us, a person, a situation? Recognizing that such words as these, in a time long ago, in a place far away, it puts us in a place what is it that is our tuning fork? What is it we present? Figuratively speaking, to life.
Curiosity.
Pardon?
Curiosity.
Okay. It is another word for receptivity, isn't it, really? Openness, availability.
When I hear those words, it straight away takes my presence. It brings my presence back into the great imaginator.
Exactly. Isn't it so? So we can ask, what is it that's our tuning fork?
It's the presence.
Presence.
Always present.
No matter what comes out of our mouth, what action it's taken, this precedes it.